Direct from Kansas City, it's Comic Book Late Night with Captain Logan! Featuring brand new comic book reviews, thoughts on comic news, obscure character of the week, and a little something from the Comic Vault. And now, here's Captain Logan!
Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome once again to Comic Book Late Night. As you can probably tell by now, the set of Late Night has been somewhat compromised by an overflow of comics from the Comic Vault. Yeah, I don't even entirely know how this happened. The comics just keep growing exponentially, and suddenly we're out of space in the vault. You know, the vault is this giantly vast, mysterious vortex of comics, and I would have expected there to have been more room, but alas, I'm out of space in the comic book vault, so it's all seeping into the set of Late Night. I gotta say, it's kind of stressing me out a little bit. It's everywhere. There's so much of it, so much to the point where I can't even stand up and really move around on the set. So, you know, when I get stressed out, I do what any normal sane person would do. That's right, I write a parody about it to a song I don't like. Yep, that's what I do. I lay out all my troubles in a parody. And, I think I'm gonna do that right now. Yeah, let's try that. Here we go. Yo, y'all. Look at all these comics, they're multiplying like tribbles. Seriously. Stacks of books in bags and boards, and they're all organized, yeah, and I can read whatever I like. I said I could even read Alpha Flight. X-Men and Spawn, Spidey stories, and Star Wars books with Han, yeah, and I can read whatever I like. I said I could even read about Spike. I've got Marvel and DC, Image and some indies. Got stuff dating back further than the 50s, and weird and raunchy stuff I can't show, cause we're making all ages videos. I want the tick, I need the tick. I only got issue 4 of the tick. I really wish I had more. All first printings would be a score, but I got the trades and they're real nice, still in black and white, yeah, and I could read whatever I like. Yeah, I could read Neil Gaiman tonight. I got Ninja Turtles all up in this place, and I've got Lost in Space, yeah, and I could read whatever I like, especially about heroes in tights. I've got Modern Age, Silver Age, even tattered and torn books from the Golden Age. Hey, what if Daredevil killed the Kingpin? Or what if the mighty Thor battled Conan? What if Spider-Man kept his cosmic some more? Or what if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? Wait, I guess that happened last month. They're out of ideas if they're stealing this stuff. Lots of Incredible Hulk, Power Rangers with Skull and Bulk, and lots of books with the Dark Knight, and really weird covers that just aren't right. Parodies to music you don't like. It's fantastic therapy. Of course I'm kidding. These are actually not part of my personal collection, but in fact books that I'll be selling. I'm getting back into the comic book selling business. It's something I used to do years ago and I missed it. I'm getting back into it now. And starting next week, you will actually be able to buy some comics that are reviewed in the Comic Vault. I'm going to start having comics back up on eBay again, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that next week, but I'm going to have lots of interesting things up for sale, so if you're interested, be sure to check it out. And like I said, I'll put links about that next week. And tonight, we're going to have a fantastic show. I'm going to be talking to Steve Younis of SupermanHomepage.com. He's the editor-in-chief there. He's going to go into the Comic Book Grill, and we're going to talk about Smallville and all kinds of other things. But first, it's time for brand new comic book reviews. Let's start straight away in with Marvel and take a look at Carnage number 4. The first rule when creating experimental army tech in the Marvel Universe really ought to be, don't use alien symbiotes for your designs. Really, these guys are 0 for 3. They blended the Carnage symbiote with their battle suits, they couldn't keep Cletus Cassidy contained, and they accidentally let the Carnage symbiote merge with the Psychiatrist until Cassidy inevitably got it back. As a result, Carnage is in control of all of their suits now, making him that much more dangerous. I love how the dialogue balloons are handled. The symbiote takes control of the guys in the suits, so whenever Carnage speaks through one of them, and Carnage himself is also in the panel, a single balloon points to the both of them. There's not a lot of story in this issue. It's mostly a huge fight between Carnage, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the army guys in mech suits. And of course, Carnage is winning. I'm still fascinated by Crane's artwork. It's highly detailed and ultra-realistic, and I love the intricate strands in Carnage's vast tentacles. There's a 2-page spread toward the end I wouldn't mind having a poster of. As I said, though, it is a pretty weak story, and I feel like this is mostly setting up a new status quo for Carnage, rather than really being a story about Iron Man and Spider-Man dealing with this nightmarish creature practically back from the dead. The only real character moment here is for Shriek, of all people, who gives a chilling comparison between psychiatrists and symbiotes. The psychiatrist whom Carnage possessed previously now has what's apparently a new symbiote, spawned from Carnage, attached to her. She doesn't like how it's getting in her head, and Shriek says that's exactly what she did to her. Ultimately, while fun, this series looks like it might just be set up for things to come. And that is, in fact, my only Marvel book this week, so we'll go on to Image and take a look at Spawn number 206. There's a lot of cool mythos building going on here, and the plot is really moving at a good clip now. Of the many subplots happening, there are 2 plot points that strike me the most. One is the 2 brother demons who Malbolgia created in such a way that they're completely detached from both sides of the war between heaven and hell, so they aren't corrupted. One of them plans on ruling hell, apparently, and I won't tell you what Spawn does to him. And the other thing is Twitch, who is hoping to find Jim so he can cure Al, which has been built up really well. We've been made to feel as bad about Sam as Twitch does, so now that he's finally going out and trying to do something about it, we care that much more. By the end of the issue, he finally comes face to face with Spawn, thinking it's Al, and I won't give away what Jim does, but he's really lost it. Like I said last issue, I get that the suit is really starting to take control of him, but I hope he doesn't stay like this forever, just angry and jaded because he's being manipulated by supernatural beings and humans are trying to exploit him. There's a lot of humanity in this character, and hopefully Will Carlton hasn't lost sight of that, though I doubt he has. Exploitation has been a big running theme through this arc, and even while Jim is losing control, it's hard not to appreciate this. He can heal people just by touching them, and everyone wants a piece of him. Even McFarlane Toys, which was a welcome bit of humor in such a bleakly sophisticated book. Kradansky continues to astound, proving he can make gruesome, bloody fights as artistic as he can cops sitting on hospitals, afraid for their sick partners. Now, let's jump over to DC and take a look at Flash number 10. I love how Jeff Johns can reveal new things to us while simultaneously keeping us in the dark. It's like an episode of Lost. Here, I was thinking Hot Pursuit's claim that he's Barry Allen at the end of issue 9 was totally on the level, but now we learn he's not from the future, but in fact from an alternate Earth, and there's a lot of doubt about whether he's really who he says he is. That's mostly because there are now 2 people who have died of rapid aging, coinciding with his arrival. By the end, there's some pretty compelling evidence that Hot Pursuit purposefully has something to do with this. He claims he's trying to stop all the alternate Earths from disappearing from reality, and I kind of hope that's a cover and not at all the truth, because really, the Crisis thing has been done. Though there must be at least some grain of truth to it, since Flashpoint is obviously going to have something to do with alternate realities. And those are fun, I'm totally behind that. I just want the main conflict to be something other than reality is unraveling again. This is mostly a setup issue, but it's fun, and I like the banter between Bart and Barry. I won't really have a lot to say about the story until there's more of it. Hey, let's go ahead and mix things up a little bit this week and go straight on to a trivia question. What recent story arc sees the descendants of the Hulk in the future in possession of the Fantasticar after the superheroes have all been killed off by the coalition of supervillains? If you think you know, leave your answer in the comments below, and as always, I will mention the first person to get it right in next week's Comic Book Late Night. And last week's question was, in the early 70s, Daredevil was having a romance with Black Widow, and he briefly moved to what city? That was, of course, San Francisco, and it was correctly answered first by none other than Shades at Night. So good job to you, sir. And now it's time for an exciting edition of Know Your Spider-Mobiles. Here is a Spider-Mobile. Is it from 1964, 1971, or 1974? And I'll come back at the end of the program to tell you which year it is. And now, on to the news. Okay, mostly Superman news this week, strangely enough, and the first thing I want to talk about is Michael Shannon being cast as General Zod in Man of Steel. Now, I think Michael Shannon's going to be great. I don't really want to talk too much about that, but I think that was a good casting choice. But I do just want to talk about General Zod in general. General Zod in general. Here's the thing. He's been getting a ton of exposure lately. What with War of the Supermen, and then Smallville with last season. There's been a lot of General Zod lately, and what's funny is Terrence Stamp's original portrayal of him is what got him to be a popular villain. He wasn't really all over the comics before Superman 2. And so it seems odd to me that he would be the first choice for Man of Steel, especially it being a big origin picture. I know a lot of Superman fans are not wanting this to be an origin movie, and I'm really not either. The validity for that, of course, that Nolan and Snyder are saying is, well, we're doing it more like the Begins route. So it's going to be a more realistic take on Superman, that kind of thing. Okay, the difference between Superman and Batman is Batman needed a good origin story told on screen by the time we got Begins, and we've had a good Superman origin. I really feel like a movie in the same tone could have been done without having to go back and retread the origin again. And they say it's gonna be broad scoping, just like Donner's was, where it's gonna be Superman from infancy all the way up. Okay, I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if they make a movie I'm going to really love, but at the same time, it's just not what I would have done. We've had two big comic book Superman villains on screen so far out of 5 movies. We've had Zod, who, again, wasn't really that big before Superman 2, and then we've had Lex in two different incarnations of that character. And I just think that Superman's Rogues Gallery, while it's not the best Rogues Gallery there is, there's more to tap into. You're gonna, and even if you're gonna do a Superman origin, I still say why not Brainiac? There's characters that a lot of fans have been wanting to see on film for a long time, and he would have been at the top of my list. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. I do love General Zod, and I think maybe part of my annoyance and part of the reason I'm complaining about it is just because nobody can beat Terrence Stamp's General Zod. There's a little 14-second teaser trailer for the finale of Smallville that came out this week, and I just wanted to mention it because it has the Superman theme music in it, which we haven't heard on the show in years. They were using that music some with the Christopher Reeve episode in, I think both Christopher Reeve episodes it popped up, if I'm not mistaken, in seasons 2 and 3, and then for a while there, within the first couple seasons, in the first few seasons, after Christopher Reeve's first appearance in Rosetta, it would pop up every so often, subtly, whenever there was any big Clark Mythos kind of stuff. And then they just quit using it over the years, and I always kind of wondered why, and now all of a sudden it's in this teaser, so it would be really cool if we got lucky enough that it popped back up in the background music in the finale. That would be really neat. My one bit of news that's not Superman related this week, Kilowog has been cast in Green Lantern. There's a voice for Kilowog, and it's none other than Michael Clark Duncan, who, of course, played Kingpin and was in Sin City and lots and lots of other cool movies. Fantastic actor. That's a really great voice cast, but I mean, the movie's about to come out in 2 months. I think it's really odd that they're waiting till the last minute to do the voices. The way these movies get made, that's certainly possible. It's certainly doable. But I'm surprised that it's taken this long. And it sounds a lot like they were trying really hard to get him, and he was in negotiations for a while, and they finally got him to do it. I'm not sure what that's about, but it's really cool that he's going to be playing the role. So that's quite awesome. My special guest tonight is Steve Younis from SupermanHomepage.com. He's the editor-in-chief there. He's talking with me from Australia, and we're going to talk about Superman and Smallville, and he's going to go into the Comic Grill. Let's take a listen. Okay, I'm here with Steve Younis, editor-in-chief at SupermanHomepage.com.
Hi.
Superman Homepage is kind of the go-to place for news and reviews about Superman, and also just tons and tons of archives of Superman information. They've got lists of oh goodness, you got a list of every Superman comic ever written. Am I right?
Yeah, we've got a comic book index dating back to 1938 with Action Comics #1. We've got We've got comic book covers. We've got a whole gallery of all the comic book covers of all the Superman comics and specials and one-shots and guest appearances and, yeah, pretty much everything.
It's really the most comprehensive thing ever. You've got lists of every episode of every TV show that includes Superman, not just Superman shows, but anything where Superman ever showed up. There it is. And I even saw a list of every pop and rock song that Superman was ever in. Yep,
that's right. We've got a Superman on radio list where we have all the songs that ever mention or are titled Superman or have the lyrics Superman in it. We have or even mentions, say, Clark Kent or Man of Steel or something like that. And there are over 500 songs in that list. So it's and we're always finding new songs all the time. People are always popping up with additions to that list. So it's a great collaboration, not just me doing it all. There's a lot of fans always emailing in with new stuff and things that they're finding that they think we should add to the website.
I also wanted to put in a plug for your podcast, which is quite good. I listened to a couple episodes of that today. And Steve, now who's the guy that you do your podcast with?
Well, originally it was Neil Bailey, who was on the show for quite a number of years with me, but in recent times he's moved away from doing Superman stuff, and now Scotty V is my co-host on the Radio KAL podcast.
And you didn't actually found the website, right?
No, that's correct. It was founded by a gentleman by the name of Andrew Gould, who started the website in late 1994, and it was called the Superman homepage basically because it was just a home page. There was nothing else to it. It was very simple. It was in the dark old days of the internet where, it was just one page and no graphics. And in 1996, he and I became friends over the internet. And I found out in late 96 that he was actually dying of a rare genetic skin disease that predisposed him to skin cancer. And he passed away in 1996, but not before asking me to take over the website. And I've done that ever since.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a story itself.
Yeah, I had no idea you'd been on since then. I mean, I figured the torch had been passed, some more recently.
Yeah, no, it was 2 years that he'd started it, and then the last 14, 15 years, I've been running the site. So I thought would just be a bit of a hobby, a bit of a sideline thing that I'd do on the side has pretty much turned into a full-time job.
Well, I was going to ask, just out of curiosity, if this was somehow all you do with your time.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm pretty lucky to be able to work for the Superman Museum in Metropolis, Illinois, running their online store.
Okay. Yeah, I knew you were affiliated with them, but I didn't realize that you actually did that for a living.
Yeah, I'm their webmaster, and I also do obviously web design and graphic design, freelance things on the side to help pay the bills. But 90% of my day is Superman related.
Do you go to the celebration every year?
I wish I could. Being an Australian, it's pretty hard to travel all that way from Sydney to Metropolis, Illinois.
I knew it was a dumb question, but I thought I'd ask anyway.
No, but I've been twice. I was there in 2003 and 2008, and would like to go again. But
you were there in 2008? That was just the year before I started going.
Okay, yeah, but it's a great celebration. It's really if you're a Superman fan, it's like the Mecca for Superman fans. It's a place where Superman fans gather, and you don't feel out of place. Everybody's just always talking about Superman all the time, and it's specifically for Superman fans, so you can't go wrong.
Well, Steve, it's time now to go into the very ominous Comic Grill. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm waiting.
All right, here we go. Steve, question number one. Like you, I followed Smallville through its entire run, though through all of its ups and downs, and I'm curious, what for you needs to be included in the finale for it to be a satisfying conclusion to such a long run?
Ooh, it's such a hard question because obviously everybody would love to see Clark finally become Superman and wear the Superman costume, fly in the Superman costume, and be called Superman. I think that is, anything less than that would be a total disappointment.
The thing that I think makes it hard to imagine that they'll actually put him in the costume really is just the fact that the one they gave him was the Superman Returns one, and it doesn't fit him.
Yeah, it's interesting that they've done that, because the S that they're using on his current red jacket is different to the S that's on the costume that's in the Fortress of Solitude. So it's they're using both S's, the traditional S that's the one that you see stamped on every other Superman merchandise item out there, and then there's the Superman Returns one that was specifically for that film that they're using on the costume that they're showcasing in Smallville. But yeah, I just hope we see more than just a fluttering cape, like we've seen in some episodes.
Yeah, me too.
I think fans really want to see Tom Welling in the costume, and not just for a fleeting, blink of an eye.
I'm actually a little surprised, considering the earlier seasons, that instead of doing the S, they didn't go with more of the 8 symbol.
Yeah,
more often, since that's what they started with. It seemed like that would make more sense.
That's the Kryptonian, obviously, the alphabet for the letter S in the Kryptonian alphabet. But I guess the stylized S is something that they have to go towards because of the fact that it just doesn't make sense for him to wear an 8 on his chest.
Steve, question number 2: who is your all-time favorite Superman comic book villain?
It's a funny one because I really enjoy Mixius Pitlick. I know many fans probably think he's too comical, but I just have a real affinity for the little imp from the 8th dimension.
Which means you probably hate that episode of Smallville.
Yeah, Mixie in Smallville was a real letdown because it had nothing to do with the character from the comic books, from the Superman mythos. It's some Russian character, exchange student that had some weird ability to, make people think it just didn't fit in with the Mixius Pitlick that I know. The magical imp from the 5th dimension is just a character that I think Gilbert Gottfried really nailed down in the Superman the Animated Series. I think he really personified the character's voice.
Steve, number 3, I'm sure you get this a lot, but being an Australian, what makes Superman such an endearing character and makes him worth devoting so much of your time to, considering he's one of America's most important and recognizable icons?
Well, I think what Superman stands for is a universal ideal. The fact that he does the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. He doesn't have any ulterior motives. He's not out for vengeance or revenge. It's not because somebody killed his uncle or because somebody killed his parents. It's because he was brought up the right way, and that you're supposed to help other people if you can, and use the gifts that you're given to, for the betterment of humankind. I think that's just something that's so pure and so universal that it's in this day and age where we've got all these anti-heroes of people who need to make up for something or feel let down for something and need to seek justice for whatever reason. The fact that Superman does it simply because it's the right thing to do, to me, is the way I was brought up.
Number 4, what did you think, if you read it, what did you think about the War of the Supermen and how it wrapped up the New Krypton arc?
Yeah, it was an interesting story. The whole New Krypton story was quite well played out. It was interesting to see Superman in a position where he wasn't in his uniform. He was in the Kryptonian military uniform and had to deal with Zod in a way that was quite unique. He still had felt the responsibility to be a person of upright standing and follow the Kryptonian ideals. I think was kind of felt a bit rushed at the ending. The whole 100-minute war just didn't feel satisfying enough. It seemed to come to a very rushed conclusion, and that now after all that, there doesn't seem to be any fallout whatsoever from the whole destruction of New Krypton. And
yeah, I don't think anybody expected that.
Yeah, it's disappointing that they moved into the whole grounded storyline and really doesn't have any repercussions from the New Krypton story. It was just like a line was drawn in the sand and that was left behind.
I always thought it would have been great if some of the Kryptonians who, left New Krypton just they had to take refuge on Earth. If you suddenly have like 100,000 New Kryptonians on Earth.
Yeah, well, I think that you might find writers in the future could always pick up on some loose threads there and say that there were Kryptonians who, had managed to sneak away on Earth. I mean, we've had a Kryptonian woman on Earth a couple of years ago, and she was the third Kryptonian as they kind of made the big title for that story. And so there's always those possibilities. And the bottled city of Kandor, we even saw some Kryptonians come out of that a couple of years ago. I think it was Praeus was his name. And he kind of just was left by the wayside, and nobody ever picked up on that story again either. So it's disappointing when those kinds of things happen and you get Superman stories that have threads that are just kind of left loose, and new writers come on board and decide to do their own thing.
Well, Steve, final question. This should be an easy one for you. What is your favorite episode of Smallville?
I'd probably say it's the first Christopher Reeve appearance.
Good call.
The first couple of seasons of Smallville were really exciting. It really felt like there was a real path that they were going down, and when Christopher Reeve came on and there was the music playing, and it just really tied it up nicely, and that was probably the most excited I felt for a Smallville episode.
I would tend to agree, and I mean, there's a couple others that I would put right up there with that one, but they're all before season 4.
Yeah, well, I didn't mind the Homecoming episode of season 10.
Believe it or not, I really liked that too, and thought I was going to hate it, but Brainiac helped a lot.
Yeah, definitely, and it was nice to flash forward to the future, and it doesn't really make sense with where Clark is and how it's all going to fit together, and the whole secret identity issue with Smallville really is a thorn in my side. I just can't see how they're going to tie that together with they're trying to make out now that Clark is not as well known as we seem to think he is, but
I think you have to consider that just a classic retcon.
Yeah, we just have to. It's just that it
doesn't matter how well known he is. That city is 3 hours away from where he used to live. It doesn't matter. People are going to recognize him.
Well, we'll just have to suspend our disbelief, I guess.
Well, Steve, thanks a lot for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody, be sure to check out SupermanHomepage.com. Tons of fun stuff to do there, and lots of great information. And thanks again, Steve. And now back to the show.
Today's Obscure Character of the Week is brought to you by Bartman Begins, because some jokes are just so obvious they must be done. Have you ever heard of Dog Welder? First appearing in Hitman number 18 in 1997, Dog Welder is a member of the superhero team Section 8. The team lives in the Cauldron, the Irish sector of Gotham City, and when we first see them, the team has been disbanded. But they come together again to help Hitman, killing a bunch of mafia soldiers who are after he, Catwoman, and others, and they help him fight Lobo. Later they go up against a team of demons called the Multi-Angeled Ones, and most of them get killed. Dog Welder's teammates include, among others, the brutal drunk Six-Pack, the Defenestrator, Phlegm Jim, yes, his powers have to do with actual phlegm, and Friendly Fire, who can't hit anyone with his fire powers but his teammates. There's not a lot to say about Dog Welder himself. He's a mute man who has a really bizarre gimmick. Yep, his name actually describes what he does. Leave it to Garth Ennis to come up with something like this guy. He welds dead Rottweilers to the faces of evildoers. I guess I'd have to read it to know exactly how this even works, but it sure doesn't sound pleasant. And special thanks to AutoCon77 for suggesting this week's Obscure Character. If you have an idea for Obscure Character of the Week, or some fan art you'd like to show off, something you want me to review on the show, or a question you want me to answer, anything like that, feel free to send me a personal message over Geekvolution, or you can send me a letter or a package to our P.O. Box, and I'd love to hear from you. And now it's time for more useless knowledge to cram your brain with. So believe it or not, Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham, was a popular enough parody after his initial 17-issue bi-monthly run in the late 80s that he's appeared in several interesting and amusing places since. Probably the funniest is his 2099 incarnation, Spider-Ham 1588, where he's featured in What the, issue 26. 1588 isn't a year, but rather a reference to the price of ham. Before this, he was used as a backup feature in Marvel Tales, which introduced a parody of the Punisher called Frank Carpel, the Punfisher. In 2007, JMS, of all people, wrote a one-shot called Ultimate Civil War Spider-Ham, where Spider-Ham goes looking for his missing thought balloons. And Tom DeFalco came back to Spider-Ham and Amazing Spider-Man Family and gives Spider-Ham a daughter, Swiney Girl. And now it's time once again to find out what I have purposefully pulled from the amazing Comic Vault. Today on the Comic Vault, we're going to take a look at Stupid #1 from Image. Image apparently didn't take themselves entirely too seriously in the beginning because they published an all-out parody of Spawn called Stupid, about a hellspawn called Spune who throws up whenever inevitably gross things in his comic happen, and not only pokes fun of a lot of common story and artistic elements in the earliest Spawn issues, but also makes fun of McFarlane and Image. Sure, there's a pot shot taken at Marvel, which is renamed to Drivel Comics, but the book comes off like an old-fashioned roast. Everybody gets wiped across the pavement here, sometimes with low blows and sometimes in really clever ways, but it all comes off as being in good fun. Al Persimmons, who seems to be a parody of Todd himself as much as Al Simmons, has a pretty successful comic book, but still can't quite beat the top dogs in the comic book world. So when he dies and goes to hell, because as he figures it, selling a bunch of comics must be enough to send a person to hell, he makes a deal with the devil. He can return to Earth, and his comic will be #1, but then the devil gets his soul. Like Spawn, his memories are foggy, but the thing Spune can't remember is the name of his own comic book. The gags are written a lot like a parody in Mad Magazine or even Marvel's What The comics. My favorites are the jabs at Spawn himself and the layout of his book. Spune is constantly having wardrobe issues, and the book pokes fun of his cape. It gets stuck in staples, it gets struck by lightning, it gets soaked down with rain and he falls off a building, and I love the cover gag. Oh sure, like it's windy all the time. It makes fun of the page of TV anchors that were in nearly every early issue of Spawn. Here it's Al flipping through absurd, mindless programs until he gets to an alien that says, "People of Earth, you watch too much television." Toward the end, Spune and Violator have a big fight scene where very little actual fighting happens. This Violator steals hearts like the real one, but has to tell a kid who wants his autograph that he's not Violator, but a parody of him. "Can I have your autograph anyway, Mr. Parody?" The narration scroll that popped up every so often during Violator fight shows up, and it asks why there's a scroll in the middle of a fight scene, and I always kind of wondered that myself. There's some great classic cartoon humor here. Spune is a really bad shot with his energy blast, and people question the action words next to it as if he came up with them. Zeech? Violator tells him he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, to which a cliched farmer holding a pitchfork and a pig says, "I hate that expression," after Spune accidentally sets his barn on fire. This gag just gets better when Violator points out that he still can't hit the broadside, as he actually put a hole in the end of the barn. Oddly, this being a complete farce, I actually really like the reveal at the end. Turns out Al's comic is actually the comic he's in. He created Spune, and it's so terrible that living in his comic is his own personal hell. Well, now let's find out what year the Spider-Mobile was from. It's in fact from 1974, and that is indeed the very first appearance of the Spider-Mobile. Well, hey, that's all the time I have for you tonight. I want to thank my special guest, Steve Younis, for being on the program. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to support your local comic book store. And if you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check out Pop Culture Comics on 87th Street in Overland Park, Kansas. That's our official sponsor and my favorite place to get comic books. And remember, if you can get away with rapping about comic books, you can get away with anything. Thanks again for watching. I'm Captain Logan, signing off.